First speaker tonight is certainly a familiar face to us as a developer at Jump24, but what you may not know is that he speaks on subjects outside of tech. So it will hopefully hit home now how important the subject of mental health is, as it features twice tonight. Mental health is something that many of us will be familiar with within the tech scene, considering the often fast-paced, hard deadline nature of what we do. But I mean, this doesn't just affect tech people; it obviously affects all of us. So here to show some more insight into what kind of challenges people face and some coping strategies, I'd like to welcome Chris Miller to the stage.
Demi Lovato, Princess Diana, Adele, Dan Harmon, Lady Gaga, Martin Luther King, Michelle Obama, Abraham Lincoln, Justin Trudeau, Susan Boyle, Donny Osmond, Michael Phelps, Leonardo DiCaprio, Daniel Radcliffe, Ryan Reynolds, Beyonce, Miley Cyrus, Carrie Fisher, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Nicki Minaj, Zayn Malik, Gwyneth Paltrow, Caroline Flack, Halle Berry, Prince Harry, Katy Perry, Kristen Stewart, Chris Cornell, Robin Williams. Something connects every one of these people. Each one of these celebrities has publicly said that they have had mental health problems. Some of them have even since passed away because of their mental health problems. I'm going to talk about mental health coping strategies, or how to cope when everything seems wrong, because it's okay to not be okay. But why should you care? Why does this matter to you? You may have had a few bad days, or you may even have had a few bad years of your own. Well, according to Mental Health First Aid England, a social enterprise whose vision is to improve the mental health of the nation, in an article published the 15th of October 2020, that stated that 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health issue each year. 1 in 6 report mental health issues weekly. At the moment, we have 14 people watching. That would mean that on average, 3 of us would be experiencing mental health issues this year, and 5 of us would be experiencing mental health issues this week. You may rightly be asking, why can I talk about this? Well, let me tell you that I have experienced this firsthand. I have a diagnosis of cyclothymia. This is a form of bipolar disorder. I've had days where I've been so depressed I can't get out of bed, don't want to do anything. I've had days where I've been so manic that I don't feel like I need to sleep, like I'm invincible, like I can do 10 things at once and nothing can affect me. I've had days where I felt the world would be better off without me and contemplated suicide. I've had days where I've wrongly believed everyone around me is against me and that I'm the only one that's right. This is often called delusions. I have on occasions also had hallucinations where I've seen or heard things that aren't there. If anyone ever wants to hear my whole story on mental health, then please get in touch on Twitter and I'll happily share this with you. There's so much more to living with bipolar that I won't go into here. But if this is bringing up questions, you can get in touch on Twitter and I'll happily chat. And there's professional support and advice available from the Samaritans for 24/7, 365 days a year support. Mind UK for advice and services. Mental Health UK from advice and services. And the NHS for NHS-based services. And we'll share their contact details in the chat. So what then is the answer to the growing crisis of our mental health? There are some key things you can think about to assist in this and find your own coping strategies. Talking to people. Sometimes talking to people helps. That can be anyone from friends to family to employers to strangers that you can get in touch with. I have before now talked to my friends and had great responses where they've listened and asked what, if anything, they can do. It was really helpful. I've also spoken to employers. I've sat down and talked with my current boss. I had a plan of knowing what I was going to say written out and was welcomed into the conversation with my boss asking if there was anything they could do to make my working life easier. With a bit of careful planning, we've made some slight changes to my working day and it's eased the load. Conversely, I've also done the same with previous employers and been told to man up and deal with it or stop faking it to get time off. As you can see, not every person will be receptive to this. So being ready to talk is one thing, but being ready to potentially accept rejection or minimization of the problems is another. In a similar fashion, one of the things that helped me is letting people know what a bad day looks like. A bad day is often the hardest thing to talk about with mental health, but it's also the time when we're most likely to need help. Something that I have personally done is to let trusted people around me know what I'm like when a bad day is here or a bad day is approaching. Not every day is bad, but some are. So let people know the signs that you're having a bad day. Also remember, bad days aren't just depression. This can be when you're anxious, nervous, manic, or just generally not feeling right. The other side of this is letting people reach out to you and ask if you're okay, but also telling the truth is just as needed. If you don't let people know, that you're not okay, people can't offer to help. Sometimes the help I need is just knowing that someone's there, someone understands. I have a circle of trusted friends and colleagues whom I feel I could talk to and ask if I'm okay, and genuinely be interested in what I have to say. It's not always easy to talk about how I'm feeling. Sometimes I don't even know myself. On more than one occasion, a trusted friend has asked me if I was okay. I've said yes, I'm fine. That person knew me. He's spoken to me before, and we've discussed what a bad day looks like. He told me he could see the warning signs. I was over-focusing, withdrawing from people. When I did engage, I was talking too much. I was avoiding face-to-face meetings and a few other things. Because I trusted him before, he could tell me a bad time was approaching. He was right. I ended up speaking to my doctor, changing medications, and it helped to improve how I was feeling. That could have been a much worse situation, but thanks to a trusting friend with details, he could help me. Daily life affects how you are. I've often found that when I'm not eating well, sleeping well, and drinking well, or getting exercise, or just generally not looking after myself, I've become further unwell from my mental health problems. So yes, what you eat and drink affects you. As you can see from my well-toned physique, I'm clearly not good at this, but I know it helps, as when I do have periods where I eat and drink well, I feel better than when I don't. There's a time not long ago where I was feeling particularly low. This really screwed with my mental health. I couldn't quite explain what was happening, but it was. I went through checking that my meds were right, that my workload was okay, that I was taking time out for me and a few other things. Finally, I stumbled on the idea that it might be something I was doing. It turned out to be energy drinks. I was drinking these to excess, and I felt worse than if I just don't drink them and went for a walk instead. It's easy in hindsight to see what this looks like, but in the moment it's not so easy. I was drinking more than 2 of them on a day on average, but I just didn't associate one with the other. One way that I've often used to look at getting some idea of where I am on a daily basis is a mood diary, a way of recording how you're feeling at a given time. And I believe our chat team are going to be sharing a couple of links to some example diaries. The idea is that you fill them in with how you're feeling, what you've done at the time, and it will help you to form a view of what might be going on. It's then about looking for patterns. So if you've got times where you feel particularly bad, look for patterns around that and things that you may not even associate. Often we don't actually know what our coping strategies are or might be. We may have never even thought about it. About 4 years ago, I was involved with a charity that dealt with mental health conditions that had a great system for helping you know where you're at and what might be affecting you. It was called the Sphere system. You marked 3 times a day on a circle how you were feeling in the various areas, then shaded in the area. The idea was that a perfect person, which doesn't exist, would have a nicely shaded sphere at the end of it, and you would see where all the kinks are. They openly acknowledge that a person could not, nor should not, ever achieve that, as we're all different. But then you would also write next to it what you had done since the last one. It helped you to identify what might have been having positive or negative effects. The key was looking at each one honestly, looking for patterns and the associations between actions and results. An example of one thing I didn't know was having a positive impact was when I drank 2 glasses of water between each one. I'd noticed that my mental state was slightly improved, as was my physical feelings of pain and other things from other illnesses. So I started to introduce more water. An example of a thing that I didn't know was having a negative impact was when I'd been playing a particular video game. Although my sense of enjoyment was increased, so was my sense of anxiety. I stopped playing that game and my state began to improve. So that's just a few coping strategies, of which there are many more. I want to finish off by revisiting that main statistic. 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem each year. Most people don't talk about it even if they should. You likely have no idea what's going on under the surface for people you meet every day. It's okay not to be okay, so be kind to one another.
Thank you very much, Chris. Very sort of poignant talk there, and really sort of fascinating insight into a personal story. So we're just going to see if we've got any questions. Let's have a look. Just going to read some. Out. So if someone doesn't know what they're feeling is a mental health problem, what would you advise them to do?
So the key thing with that is talking to professionals that understand this. They would rather see somebody that doesn't have a mental health problem, that is just experiencing a bad day, and advise them that that's the case, than to miss the one person that is experiencing a mental health problem. The other thing is that it actually helps mental health professionals to have that kind of mood diary in place. So the idea of tracing how you're feeling at any given time and passing that over helps. When you do first speak to a doctor, the sort of questions you'll get asked is, over the past 2 weeks, have you felt? Over the past 2 weeks, have you experienced? If you've got a mood diary in place, you'll actually have a more concrete answer for that.
Okay, cool. We have a question from Stuart Langridge. You talked about coping strategies by drinking more water or cutting out a video game, but how did you know these things were making things worse? Because it's hard to tell from the inside how you're feeling.
Yeah, so that's about primarily being honest with yourself, looking at how you're feeling about things. And we as people naturally want to hide behind things of, yeah, I'm fine, we're okay, don't worry about me. But often we know that we do feel certain things. We may not have a name for what we're feeling, we may not have a way of expressing what we're feeling, but we can associate that this feels good, this feels bad. And the association between the two was more around the sort of overall result of, as I was drinking more water, I noticed that I felt generally better in myself. And as I happened to stop playing that video game, I felt generally better in myself.
Okay, cool. And I've got another one from Maeve O'Sullivan. If you think someone doesn't know, someone you don't know might well be struggling, can you suggest good ways to ask without feeling intrusive? Yeah, that's a really good question.
So that's actually a really good question. It depends on how well you know the person. So although you may not know them well, do they trust you? Do they deem you as a close friend? Even if you don't feel that you know them, the relationship can be sort of lopsided in one sense. I think when it comes to people you don't know, it's becoming more common to, in this country, be willing to answer the question of, are you okay? Honestly. If you feel that somebody is struggling and that they're not willing to talk about it, there is other options of, is there a mutual friend that is closer that you could ask for support in this area? But remember that this person may be not necessarily ready to talk about things themselves.
Okay, cool. Thanks. And I think we've got one more question. So from Fusion Technology Meetup, who I happen to know is Hannah. When you're starting to feel that you are heading towards negative feelings, what are your go-to coping mechanisms? I guess this is what you call sort of your mental health toolkit type thing.
Yeah. So for me personally, it's spending more time away from the computer is one thing that helps me. Getting out into the outside world, remembering that outside the window is this whole place that we can enjoy. Another one is ensuring that I'm actually sleeping well. One of the things that I really struggle with is a decent sleep routine. I can function on 4 or 5 hours. But if I do start doing that for any extended period of time, I notice that things are going downhill. So looking at that is a common factor. And the other one that really helps is just sitting down and talking to my partner about it more than anything. And just telling her, do you know what, today was a rubbish day.
Cool. Yeah, we've got one more. Here we go from Ebony Brotherson. If you could advise someone on how to start a conversation about their mental health with a health professional, friend or family member, what tips would you have?
So health professionals are fully aware that this is a really hard subject for some people to talk about rather. It sounds like I'm repeating myself a lot here, but it actually is the sort of central key. Be honest. It doesn't matter to a health professional if you go and you tell them you feel like shit. They have heard it all before. And it's not going to shock them if you tell them that you've had suicidal thoughts. It's not going to shock them if you tell them that you're constantly feeling depressed, constantly feeling anxious. Even if you don't have the words to express what you're feeling, just go to them and talk to them about the fact that you're not feeling right. The initial exploratory questions would help to establish what that feels like. And it asks about anxiety, but in that question, it will describe what anxiety might feel like. So you may not know that what your experience is anxiety, but it will help you to get that answer.
Okay, cool. That's all we've got time for. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for sharing your personal experiences with us.